All right, let's say how do you guys do? It's another live stream. I'm sure a few people will join shortly. I just want to prep the stream, look at the quality, just get a baseline, see that everything's actually working and running as intended. So let me just quickly get into my lives on YouTube and let's see what's happening there. Oh, that's cool. I didn't upload a thumbnail for this one, so that's pretty cool. I'll maybe do something afterwards. Just open up the stream itself. Okay, that's cool. That seems pretty good. Hey guys, if you're already watching. Also, it might seem a bit weird because I've got like the microphone and its old stand. It's like sitting right in front of me, all bulky. So if you see me look to the right, it's because the screen's on the right, but the microphone's in the left. So it kind of makes for a weird, like talking angle, because then my lips are going this way, but my eyes are going that way. It's pretty weird. So let's quickly have a look-see, and what I want to do is just open up the lab. I'm just going to minimize the YouTube stuff. I don't actually really need to see the stream so much. It's just one setting I want to check in the stream to make sure it is working appropriately. No, the screen doesn't contain any altered content. All right, let's do that. And now I've got an itchy back. All right, but this should be a relatively fun stream as well, since I'm kind of rebuilding the MPLS lab from before. It's just I really want to get it done in the live so that you guys can kind of see that it works, because it's so weird that we couldn't get it working in the previous version 7.15 build, which was on beta 9 or beta 9, and I've retested it with the release candidate 2, and on there it worked. I can actually kind of show you guys that just by going onto the thing. So let me jump on here. Hello. Let's maximize this and let's head into the wonderful world of Eve and G. So 192.168, yada yada. And kind of the same topology, just scaled down quite a bit, because now we've just got basically 2 provider routers, 2 provider edges, and a route reflector. So it's a smaller scale than the other lab, but the config is relatively unchanged. It's pretty much all the same stuff. It's all MikroTik. It's just kind of, but on here it works. So that's why I want to rebuild the lab as well, so that you guys can see it in real time. Hey Eugene. So let's just redo it, because this obviously isn't going to cut it, even though the lab looks super cool, it looks nice. It's just not working because of potentially some type of software bug. So scratch it, we can kind of delete the lab. That's kind of sad as well. So I'll just add a new lab. It's called MikroTik MPLS again. And first thing I want to do before I actually start is head on to the MikroTik website and see if there are any other new builds that maybe came out. So let's head onto the software, and it's still using release candidate 2 for testing. It might be good for me to also test maybe with the stable build. I'm not sure. What would you guys think? Do you think we should try with the stable build or do the test build? The test build usually has more current functions and more ironed out features I've seen, especially when it comes to stuff like the BGP. So I actually think we should stick with testing. So I think we're gonna stick with the testing. Yeah, we're gonna do RC2. The nice thing about the release candidate builds is usually they're pretty close to the real stable build coming out as well. Like usually it's like a couple of days or weeks when MikroTik brings out the stable build after they've released a release candidate and not just a beta build. All right, so let's just download one of these quickly. Cloud hosted router, find the raw disk image, and download this. It should be a nice and quick download, and that it is. Just open that. Could just extract it quickly as well into the same folder. I think that is in the downloads folder. Just want to make sure quickly. Show folder, yeah, here it is. And then the next thing we want to do is just copy this over to Eve. So I think I'm gonna have to do this from the terminal, to be honest. So just need to remember, it's like ACP you use for this, ACP help. That's something I use often. ACP, you like type source and then target. You know, this is where Google comes in handy, like ACP, copy file to remote system. And it's pretty sad, but you know, it makes sense that some people like me get lazy and then you just Google the commands the whole time. Oh, no. Let's see, SCP. That doesn't seem like how I remember that. ACP user at source. That looks more like what I want. So I might also just quickly create another session and SSH onto my Eve box. So that is on 192.168.140.129, I think. Good old root. TME. Wrong password. There we go. So first thing I just want to do is create. Actually, I don't need to create it. I think I actually loaded it already. I'm being super silly now, aren't I? Because I showed you guys that I already did a lab with RC2, so I actually don't need to do this. Yeah. Let's just have a look. We could just change the directory to OPT, unit lab, add-ons, Kemu. And then if we look at these directories, we should see there is a MikroTik 7.15rc2. Okay, so I've already got this. But if I didn't have this, then I would just really create this directory, copy the file across into it, well, the image, and then just convert it to an hda.qcow2 file. Then you can load it onto Eve very easily. All right, so I actually don't need to worry about the SCP stuff now. Cool. All right, so let's add our nodes quickly. Since I'm going to do the same type of topology, I'll add the same number of nodes to start off with. It will be 12, but I'm not going to like configure each and every node individually now. I'm mainly going to do 2 provider edges, the provider routers I'll do, and a single route reflector, and then obviously the customer edges so that we can actually test and see if MPLS works. So let's do that. And last time MPLS worked as well, it was just when we redistributed BGP routes that it didn't want to work. So that's kind of like the sad bit. These blue routers look pretty good. Give it a little bit more RAM, a little bit more interfaces, and off we go. I'm not gonna make the like shapes and stuff yet. I'm not gonna like make the lab look overly nice. I'm just going to move stuff into position. So that's gonna be a provider, that's gonna be provider, maybe another provider, provider edge, provider edge, provider edge, provider edge, route reflector, and then CE1 CE2. Hang on, have I got one too many now? No, I don't. I've got 4 providers, 2 route reflector. Sorry, it's like they're just names at the moment. So it might be good for us to just name them quickly as well. So this could be my P1 or core 1, P2. Oh, and the nice thing I think with Eve as well, you could just go into these nodes section and then you can change the names from here, because this might be a little bit quicker to do. So this might be P3, P4. Let me just name them. I'll move them around if anything is out of place. So PE1, PE2, PE3, PE4, RR1, RR2, CE1, and CE2. Hello, Andy. I don't know why my back is so itchy. It kind of sucks. There is RR2, CE2, so P4, CE1, just swap them around. It will look a little bit nicer as well the moment I actually connect all the cables and stuff. So PE1, I can keep PE1 and 2 on the bottom and PE3 and 4 at the top. That's fine. Alright, so let's quickly connect these devices. Providers will be directly connected to each other. So that one, Ether 1, Ether 1, Ether 1, Ether 2, and such and such. There we go. Just make that look a little bit neater. And let's just connect the provider edges to the providers. All right, so that should be the same on both ends. So Ether 3 on the provider facing interface goes to the provider edge. That's more like an OCD thing now. It really doesn't matter which interface it goes into. It's just because I'm kind of like speed running the config now that it's worthwhile that everything is kind of as symmetrical or the same as possible. So RR1 can go into P1 and P2. Then RR2 can go into P3. Actually, I should make the Ether 1 go into P4. There we go. That already looks a lot better, doesn't it? I might connect these provider edges directly as well, but let's not worry about that too much just yet. And I'm just going to connect the CE straight into the provider edge 1 and 2. I'm not even going to worry about like backup, failover, and BGP like that just now. It's really just to get this MPLS stuff out of the way. All right, that looks like a pretty good setup. That actually looks like some type of alien symbol. So let's start up these nodes, and while they are booting, I'll just quickly assign or figure out some IP addressing for our links. So maybe 10.0.0.0/30, because I really like this private range for some reason. I said I'm not going to be too worried about making stuff pretty, but this is such a quick thing to do, it doesn't really matter. Because then we've got that /30 there, this /30 here. Ooh. This /30 here. And then lastly, 1/30 here between these provider edges or the providers. And now we can do something between the provider edges. So we could continue the same IP scheme, or maybe I'll just add it as a .1 for the networks going to the left. And maybe I'll make it a .2 for the networks going to the right, because that kind of makes sense in my head as well. So .2 and .2. And then lastly, although not lastly, I need to add some IPs for the route reflectors as well. Straighten that out a little bit. This can still follow the same IP scheme. I like the core to just have as much of the same as possible. But I already have 12 there, so I need to make this like 16 and 20. And just this one link here. So this can be 24 and then 28. No, wrong one. There. 28. All right. And customer edges, what do we want to assign there? Maybe like some 172 IP. Or we could do the good old CGNAT IP. So let's keep it something private. I'll just make this 172. Let's make it like 29.254.1. I'll keep it, or not 1, .0 /30. I'll keep it /30s, even though I kind of like to assign /29s for future proofing to customers, but since IP addresses are so rare, it's probably good to just narrow this down as much as possible. But hey, these are private IPs at the end of the day. We can make like do with them whatever we want. Okay, so IPs assigned. We have our network. So let's quickly run through the configs. And for this, I might just do one device, like in real time quickly, and then I'll shoot through the rest using the terminal and like a command line or something. I'll probably do it with command line just by clicking on each of the nodes because it's going to be quicker. So let's start off with our busiest node, which would be our P2 and P3, because they've got 5 backhauls or connections to all of the other devices in the network. So for them, it is admin blank, no license. I can set a password, it's fine. And then we can start the fun. So first things first, let's just set the identity, system identity set name. This is P2. Then we can set our IP addressing quickly. IP address, add address. Look at our interfaces. So this is where I've got 10.0.0. Hang on, I need to say the address 10.0.0.2. And what I tend to like to do when we're doing IP addressing like this, even though this is really why you should use something like an IPAM system, like IP management system, it's so that you can keep track of where what is. Since it's just a lab, like this is really simple and straightforward, because what I tend to like to do is my more central devices gets the first IP, and the further away something else is, that will get the second IP if we're working with stuff like /31s or /30s. So obviously the P1 is kind of the core, so that's going to be my .1, and then P2 is going to be .2. And then the same for like P2, when it goes to PE1, it will get .5, and then the PE1 will get .6. That is just kind of how I like to assign the IPs. Hello. It's going pretty good, and with you? I'm literally just rebuilding this MPLS lab with no, we can chit chat. I'm just rebuilding this MPLS lab with the RC2 build, or the release candidate 2 build, because I had it working on a separate mini lab, and I just want to make sure it actually works in the same type of topology as well. Even though I'm fairly sure it will, I can't see why it wouldn't. It's just same configs, different software version. Okay, so what do we have here? Oh, but if you mean like the chat itself, yeah, the chat is pretty silent today. I think it's not such a busy stream. Let me just quickly have a look at the stream stats. Because maybe people are getting getting bored of watching me like live stream like this, but like I said, this is really just a get in here and chat or see what I'm doing, like just to see that, you know, I'm still around and kicking. 10002/30. Right, stream looks all right, I think. It's so weird that I don't see the Stream Studio stats on YouTube. I used to get a lot more analytics if I just went in here. I can probably see it, I'm just probably missing where I'm supposed to be going. Alright, that's good. I'm happy if you guys are learning a lot. A new tablet. That's cool. What tablet? I don't know much about tablets. Like the best tablet I've seen is like an Amazon Fire tablet. But it's because it's got like a ton of useful, like fun apps and stuff. Okay, let's just continue with adding the IP addressing quickly. So IP address add 10.0.0.2/30 is on my Ether 1. Then I'll have 10.0.0.9 on Ether 2. Actually, I'll make 9 P2. So Ether 2 is .9. Ether 3 is 10.0.15. Ether 4 is 10.0.11. 10.0.11. Samsung Galaxy Tab. Hi Ezekiel. Pre-Easter Thursday. Is it Easter? I know some places celebrate Easter differently, if I remember correctly. Because this side Easter was in April, I think, at like the beginning of April. But I've seen like some people have Christmas in January as well, which is very interesting. Just shows you how different like many cultures celebrate the same holiday but just different times. And Ether 5 is 10.0.0.25. 10.0.0.25. And IP address add. I need to add loopbacks as well. So for this, I might do something weird. Maybe like 9999 or something like that. Just add some more text quickly for loopbacks. Let's make it 172s as well. 172.30.00 or 0.1. So it's pretty straightforward. .1 is P1, .2, you know, every router has their own like loopback now. So .1, .2, .3, .4, .5, whatever. .2, .3, because P3 is P3, so it gets .3. P4 is P4, so it gets .4. Really straightforward. Here we've got it a bit different. PE1 is .5, .6. At P2 can be .6, .7 can be RP3, and then .8. MPLS OSPF cluster is being rebuilt. That's nice. Yeah, it's fun. Hey Joseph. So 9 and .10. Cool. Okay, so this is fairly straightforward as well. So we can just quickly resume with the setup. Reason I wanted that was because I am adding the loopback or IP address to the loopback interface, and this is on interface LO. So we've got IP addresses. Next, after the IPs, I'd recommend probably just either adding the MPLS or OSPF. Let's just add the MPLS quickly. So we've got MPLS, LDP. We'll do LDP with this, add. And then we can, our transport address is just going to be our loopback address, so 172.30.02. And our LSR ID is going to be the same. And then I can do an MPLS LDP interface, add, and then I'll add all of the transit interfaces. So that should be either 3, 1, 2, and 4. Even though I'm not really interested in configuring like the top PEs or anything, it's just going to be quicker to copy and paste the config like this. So I don't need to do 5 because 5 is going to the route reflector, and that doesn't in essence really need MPLS configured on it unless I want to use that as transit in case of like some extreme failover scenario. But that shouldn't have to happen. It should just be a normal BGP route reflector. So our interfaces should be ether 1, ether 2, ether 3, ether 4. And now we can quickly add the OSPF. And this is quite so simple to configure as well. So we can do routing OSPF instance. If I just hit add and enter, it adds a nice little OSPF instance for us. It just has that name, but it's basically running OSPF version 2, and it will just use the loopback address of the router as a router ID. I mean, there's obviously things you can tweak in a routing instance or a OSPF instance. Parse off topic, how the user experience with the HAP AX3. It's pretty good. I mean, I'm not using it right this second because I was having some interference with it. Even though I was using it myself, the family home runs off of also equipment that was put in by our ISP, and you know, for me the HAP AX3 is really good. It's solid. Like the only thing that's not solid, unfortunately, is the Wi-Fi access, which is silly because that's kind of what a lot of people would buy it for. But I've had some lackluster experience with the Wi-Fi. Personally, you know, it's not too bad since I'm usually very close to where the equipment is, but I'll have like my wife or mother-in-law like be quick if something's wrong with the Wi-Fi, let me know. And you know you're gonna be paying through your nose if somebody lets you know that hey, the internet is down or slow or it doesn't work nice. Alright, so we've got a routing OSPF instance. Let's do a routing OSPF area, and then we can just add another area. You can give it the name backbone. You don't really need to give it a name. The most important bit is just specifying what instance this is bound to, and that is going to be this OSPF instance 1 that was created, and then the area ID, which is always important with OSPF because, as you should know, if you're using OSPF, everything should be connecting to the backbone, which is the area 0. So I'll just check, is there anything else? No, we can leave the type as default. We're not doing any summaries here. This is fine. This is good. All right, so now we can add our interface template. So routing OSPF interface dash template. Add it, and then the important bit is specifying our area, which was the backbone, and then I can set my type to P2P. I think it's PTP with MikroTik, and the other important bit here is our interfaces, which should be our ether 1, ether 2, ether 3, ether 4. For this, I'm going to specify ether 5 as well, because I'm going to configure OSPF on the route reflectors, since I want them to be reachable on their loopback interfaces. But hang on, router OS overall has quite a lot of room. It does. There's definitely always some type of improvements that can happen. I'm not going to specify any cost. I'm not going to change anything here really. The main thing I'm going to do is just hit enter, and then I'm going to up arrow this and backspace, and then here where I'm going to specify interfaces, I'm going to also add LO, and then I'm just going to set it for passive and hit enter. I think you could just add LO in that generic interface template and it will work fine as well. It should automatically add a loopback interface as a passive interface, but you know, you don't know if it actually really does that. And the reason I do that is just so that the loopback interface advertised out via OSPF to all of the other neighbors or across the backbone area, so that everybody's aware of this loopback interface. All right, so now we've got OSPF, we've got MPLS, we've got IP addressing. What else we need? Okay, maybe just enable ROM on just in case. So tool ROM on set enabled, yes. What else do I want? Export. I mean, since this is a provider device, there's not too much happening since we're not configuring BGP or anything on the provider itself. So that actually looks pretty good to me. Yeah, so I'm just quickly going to copy this and pop it into a text file. So good old text editor. And then I'm just going to edit out some of the stuff I don't really need. So that's fine. DHCP I don't really care about. And the note I don't care about too much. Cool. So with this, we can just quickly add more config across the board. So let's just grab this. Hang on, grab it. So where I click there we go. I'm just pasting it again for various reasons. Does MikroTik have EVP? No, they don't. It doesn't. I wish they did, but they don't have EVPN support. It doesn't. The address family just doesn't exist. Unfortunately, the only thing you can do is create static VXLAN tunnels. But you know, EVPN isn't. That's such a fascinating subject. Is that EVPN isn't VXLAN, even though you're using kind of VXLAN as well with it. It's just that EVPN is the control mechanism. Like the fancy thing with BGP that signals it, that makes it work. Yeah, MPLS isn't. That's such a cool thing. I actually love that about MPLS is actually such a straightforward thing. It's just like just seeing and understanding what it does makes it so amazing, because the potential, you know, I've done a bit of studying, and it's crazy like what MPLS was made for and like how it's evolved. Just the fact that we can carry all of these different protocol information over it, it's such a useful thing. Like the world actually really needs MPLS as much as it does BGP. I know that sounds weird saying in the software defined world, but even in the software defined world, in the background, it's all MPLS, man. It's all MPLS. Okay, so let's just quickly edit this stuff to make it fit each of the other devices. Yeah, that is the next big thing, is especially SRv6. I can see that. I'm not gonna point blank say that is the MPLS killer, but if something was to kind of like become bigger than MPLS, it would probably be SRv6. Is it possible to have WireGuard tunnel available through IPv4 behind the CGNAT available from WAN? I think you can actually, as long as you are connecting to a remote server, so to speak, that is in the cloud or whatever, then yeah, I mean, I think my videos where I created WireGuard tunnels to AWS It was also on things that's sitting behind, like CGNAT and double NATs and stuff like that. And the WireGuard tunnel would come up and work. So it should, unless your ISP is like somehow being finicky and they're blocking certain traffic, then it might not work. And that could always be a possibility. All right, so let me just do provider 2 quickly, or provider 3. Yeah. Provider 3 is, Ether 1 is 10.0.0.6. 10.0.0.6. I should have removed the networks. It just makes it so much simpler when I'm copying config across like this. There we go. And I might just quickly recopy this. Yeah. All right, so 10.0.0.6 on Ether 1. Ether 2 is 10.0.0. What is that? Let's make it 13. 10.0.0.13. Hello, I'd like to ask about MTU. There is an item MPLS interface MTU. Do I need to change it in case of VPLS without VLANs? So I don't think so, but it depends on your network. Like, what MTUs are you running? What MTUs are you capable of running? Because in this day and age, what a lot of ISPs tend to do is at the core of their network, they'll run like big MTU, like jumbo frames, like 9K plus MTU values on the interfaces. And that is plenty for any services that you might want to run across it, like VPLS or VLANs or all that stuff. So you don't have to, like, you know, be very specific with the services you're trying to bring across. Because a lot of older people might only be using stuff like 1500 default MTUs. But even MikroTik's MTU values on their equipment, by default, it's running at close to, like, I think 1600 or something that it can do. It's even more if I remember now. I'd have to boot up a MikroTik and check again. All right, but let's just continue here. Ether 3 is 10.0.2.5. 10.0.2.5, 10.0.2.5. Okay, that's fine. I think Ether 4 will just be 10.0.2.1. Let's just make sure. Yeah, it is. And then Ether 5 is 10.0.0.29. 10.0.0.29. And that allo is .3.3.3. And I don't see anything else that I really need there. So let's just copy this and pop this into my P3. Admin. No, I don't want the license. And paste this in. And that is so nice and quick to do. Now, I'd love to just check the stats, but since it's just these 2 provider routers we did, it's not really going to do anything for us right now. Technically, I don't need to do provider 4, but I'm going to do provider 1 and 4 as well. So provider 1, 4, route reflector 1, and then the PEs and the CEs I'm going to do. I'm not going to worry about PE 3 and 4 right now, or route reflector 2. Like, we'll figure that out if the MPLS is actually working the way it should. So let's jump back into this and go into here. And for P1, it's actually, P1 and 2 is so simple. They just have 2 links. It's so nice being these core devices, because they just like transiting for real. But this is where you could think of those being these big routers that have these 100 gigabit interfaces or 400 gigabit interfaces, and their job is just to push packets across the network. They don't do any you're not configuring them for anything. They're just there to push traffic. So this is going to just be 2 interfaces. So P1, and that is 10.0.0.1. and then 10.0.0.5. Oh wait, I do need one more interface for the IP, even though I'm not adding a third interface on Ether 3 for stuff like the MPLS. I do still want to have stuff to the route reflector, so this was 10.0.0.17 on Ether 3. 10.0.0.17, and that's .1, that's .1, and anything else that's interesting here? No, just Ether 1 and 2 does MPLS for us, and I only need Ether 1, and I could actually just backspace that like that. So 1 and 2, and then allo passive, and then the name will be P1. Man, that's such a basic config. So nice and easy. So admin, no. Cool, and then guess what? P1 or P4 is just as nice and easy. It's just a name of P4 with the LSRs being .4.4.4. Oh, hang on, I made one quick mistake. Ether 3 should have been added. So I can just quickly add that on P1. So let's just do routing OSPF, what is it? Interface dash template print. So line item 0, we just want to add that interface. So what I could do is just do a set interfaces Ether 1, Ether 2, Ether 3 on line 0. So if I print it again, we can see it's been added. Just quick memory check. Do customer edges connect to MPLS provider edges with BGP routing? In the topology that we're using, yes. So what I am labbing is the customer edge will have a BGP session to the provider edge, and that provider edge will then have to take that information, that routing table information that is, or the routes that is learned from the customer edge in its own VRF for that customer, and just propagate it across the network to the other provider edge so that these customer edge devices can at least see each other. So it works like a real world scenario where you might have BGP running towards the customer, because the customer might have multiple links, and maybe you want to provide some failover scenario, and then that's kind of what BGP is very useful for. But you could also make it work with OSPF. I actually think with the previous lab we could have made it work with OSPF, but it should work with BGP. It has to, because many people have it set up like this. All right. Ether 3. I still need to update the IPs on this. So for P4, its Ether 1 is 10.0.0.10. Its Ether 2 is 10.0.0.14. And its Ether 3 is 10.0.0, what's that, 21. 10.0.0.21. 4, I'm not missing anything here. So that's all good. I can just copy this and pop it in. So P4 no, TMB123, paste that in, and in theory we should already be learning the routes across the core network now. So if we do like a route print, routing, and where am I? Why is it not showing me that? I think it's IP route print. Alright, we are learning some stuff over OSPF, but the important bit to me is to actually be learning these routes. These plus routes are just ECMP routes. It means it's just equal costs, multiple paths for it. So if I wanted that to not do ECMP, I could just cost it out so that one of the interfaces is a little bit more, cost a little bit more. Then it wouldn't do ECMP like this, but it's fine. I'm not going to worry about it right now. So let's go back to our I can do provider edge, or I can do route reflector now. Let's do the provider edges because there's 2 of them, so it should just be a copy and paste as well for their config. And it's also just a single interface that's going into the MPLS in this instance. So just ether 1. What was that IP? .5 and 6. Okay, .5 and 6. So I'm just going to update this to PE1. How to fix a rogue AP in MikroTik. MikroTim. So what do you mean? Like somebody comes into the office and just plugs in their access point they brought from home, and then they broadcast out an SSID, and are you worried about that? Do you want to stop that? Or what type of rogue AP are you talking about? Yeah, that's weird. Triple PoE or DHCP. Alright, so let's go ether 1. I'll still have IPs for ether 2 as well. I'm not having an ether 3 in this instance. So this is 10.0.1.6. 10.0.1.6 on ether 1. And then for our 172.29.254. 172.29.254.1. Well, that just depends, like, if that access point is... Oh, do you mean they're using triple PoE and the DHCP at the same time to a customer so that they get, like, IPs from both things? Because then that is definitely very weird. And as for the rogue AP, I mean, if that AP is connecting into one of your switches, then there's a few things you could do, but I definitely, like, limit, maybe, you know, I think the quickest thing to do, although you might not be able to do it with MikroTik though, unfortunately, but I know with stuff like Cisco, you can like add port security, where you can also set like a maximum number of MAC addresses that can be learned on an interface. And if somebody's broadcasting an SSID and people are connecting to that, then obviously it's going to learn more MAC addresses over there. Then you could just like stop it. So if you learn more than 2 MAC addresses from an interface, then shut the interface down. Like, that's one thing. Otherwise you just have to Google, because I've never had to like hunt down rogue access points connecting on MikroTik. Nobody's ever done that to me. Let's see here, .5, .55, that's fine, PE1, and it's just ether 1 and the loopback that we're adding for the OSPF interface template. So this looks basic, but it's going to grow a little bit since we are adding a BGP config onto it as well. So let's just go onto the provider edge one quickly. Admin blank this. Paste it, enable it. Go back like this, and let's do an IP route print. Or let's do an IP OSPF or routing OSPF neighbor print. we've got a nice full neighbor. So we should have some routes. There we go. We've got them. Huzzah. All right. So we should do the BGP config as well. But for that, I might want to have the route reflector up and running. It doesn't matter. We can add the BGP config so long. So we could do stuff like routing, BGP. And then we are adding a connection. And I could use a template, but again, I just like statically setting these things. So I can add the new connection. Our AS, I didn't decide on an AS number. Let's make it something like 64510. That sounds good. The story is that we had 3 ISPs that have joined to a single entity. Yeah, that happens quite often. Remote AS, it's going to be the same, 64510. Remote address is going to be the loopback address, which is .9, 172.30.09. Then we're going to use our local address. It's going to be our loopback address, which is 172.30.05. You could stop a TCP ACK flood with the firewall rules. I think MikroTik has already similar videos on their channel that you could apply those type of rules to do that. But it's going to be with a firewall rule. You'll be able to do that. You could maybe also do like a tar pit type of thing where you can capture the IPs of whoever is performing the attack and then put it in the address list, and then you could do something with that address list to like block their connections or stop them or time them out. Local address and then local role, that's important. This is an IBGP RR-client. And name, I can make this PE1 to RR1. I don't need to set the connect, yes, but I do need to set some address families. If we don't set an address family, then it's only going to use IP. So we want more than IP. We want IP. We want IPv6. I think it is, yeah, IPv6. Then we want L2 VPN, which is for stuff like VPLS. And one day when they fix eVPN, this is where I'm not sure if they'll just bundle eVPN up into L2 VPN or if it will have its own address family, but we'll see. And then we can do stuff like VPN v4, which is our layer 3 VPN with traditional IP address stuff. Or I saw they have VPN v6, but I'm not going to worry about VPN v6 because we're not using the IPv6 in this topology yet. Maybe we will in the near future. Okay, and is there anything else we want here? We maybe want to set our next hop choice. No, wait, we don't even need to set that. We can just hit enter, to be honest. So that is going to be a pretty standard BGP session out to our provider, or not provider, edge, our route reflector. Let's just add a session towards the customer edge as well. So routing, BGP connection. Our AS remains the same, so 64510. Our remote AS, I'm just going to make something like 300. Remote address, it's going to be 172. What do I make that IP? 29.254.29.254.2. Our no, I've already specified the remote AS. I hate when it does this. There we go. 254.2. Let's just give it a name, PE1 to CE1. Connect, yes. Listen, yes. Oh, this is where I really need a VRF as well for the customer. And we're not done with the BGP VPN stuff yet either. So there's a bit more we need to add. But let's just add the customer stuff. It's actually going to complain when I try and add the config now, but it's fine. We can just iron everything out and I can just up arrow to add everything again. We can set maybe the VRF will be cust1, even though I don't have it yet. And our routing table cust1. I might want to give it an output redistribute. No, wait, we don't want to redistribute. Output default originate. And then we can just send out a default route out to our CE. I've got the remote roles. I've got my AS. We can maybe set our local address, which is 172, what's it, 29.254.1. And our, just one more thing, local role is eBGP. Alright, pretty straightforward. Enter. It gets upset because we don't have the VRF yet, so I can just quickly add the VRF. So this is just as easy as saying IPVRF interface or IPVRF add interface, and that is Ether2. And the name is going to be cust1. And now we up arrow the same stuff, and presto, it works. It does on the console. I really, it's frustrating, and it's not just a lot of the version 7 stuff does this, where it freaks out while you're typing in the console. All right, so I've got BGP session to the CE and to the RR. I just need to add the BGP VPN configuration, and this is just adding like a route distinguisher and which routes we're targeting and importing and such. So routing BGP VPN add. I don't think I need to give it a name, but let's give it a name, cust1. VRF is going to be cust1, obviously. Our route distinguisher, I'm just going to make our AS :1, which is for customer 1. And I'm going to export do I have the right import route targets? Import.route dash targets, that's what I want. It's going to be the same, so 6 4 5 10. Export dot route targets, same thing, 6 4 5 10. No, :1 could have made an accident there. No, I don't think that would block rogue access points. I think the only thing that would achieve is that your users would have to use that authentication key to connect to your access point. But if a rogue AP is broadcasting out the signal, then somebody could still accidentally connect to it, regardless of using WPA2 or anything like that. Does it on? I haven't used Arch Linux, so I'm not sure. I've seen people like spaz out about how difficult Arch is, but I haven't used it. It probably is super complex and difficult. Oh, and we want to set our label allocation policy per VRF. And that should be it. That should be done. So if I export now, obviously we have a little bit more extra config. regarding the BGP. So I can just copy this, prop that into here. I can just add it after the OSPF, it should be fine. And we can just quickly tweak this a little bit. So this is nice and easy. Ah, this is where I should actually use stuff like Notepad++, where you can just like control find and replace text. Can I download Notepad++? I'll probably have to go to the software store thingy. Where is it? App Center. Notepad++. It uses Wine. Even though I'm still just gonna have to grab all of this config and then move it over to Notepad++. I'd actually say Notepad++ is my favorite editor. Visual Studio Code is cool and all if you're actually coding, but yeah, that's a good question as well. I mean, this should be a relatively quick download because it's already downloaded. I think it's just installing. There we go. Obviously, a good thing I've installed Wine as well beforehand. I wonder how well it runs in Linux though. Alright, is it finished? Open it again. Nice. Nice. This is beautiful. I love this. Yeah. Yeah, this is a good this is a good editor. So, no, I don't want to install stuff now. So now all I can do is do a quick replace. So we can say we want to find this and replace it with a .6. 4 instances were replaced. Awesome. Awesome to the max. Because now we've automatically fixed up all of the BGP stuff. Although I do need to make sure that the remote addresses we're connecting to is correct as well. So I think this is .5 and 6. So remote address here is .6. Local address is hang on. .5. That's fine. Hey Nicola. Nico. There we go. That looks fine. Just gonna have to fine comb this though and make 100% sure nothing is out of place. This is .5. And I think this will just be .2. Let's just make sure. Yeah, 2.6. So that's fine. These interface types are fine. Okay, so let's just run through this config quickly. Local address that, remote that, that's fine. That's fine. We just fixed up the stuff connecting to the CE. I can just rename this maybe, so PE2 to whatever. That's fine. PE2 to RR1. Even though the name really won't break anything. I'm just rebuilding the MPLS lab from previously just on the release candidate 2. So same config, just different version, and then see if it works, and it probably will. So nothing else looks out of place there. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So let's copy it, paste it into the PE2. I did paste stuff into PE1. I'm starting to think I didn't. I hope I did. No, I did, because I obviously copied the BGP configuration. So if I do an IP route print, routing, OSPF neighbor, print, all right, neighbors up, we should learn some routes, there we go. All right, but our BGP is going to be down, and it's going to be down because we don't have the route reflector configured yet. So let's quickly do that. And then blank, no. And route reflector, it's going to kind of use the same configuration just without any customer edge on it. So I can remove the CE BGP config. And I don't need the BGP VPN config on it. The important bit that I need is we're changing this to just be an IBGP-RR. And this is going to be RR1 to PE1. And obviously we're just changing the IPs around now. So this is .9 and then this becomes .5. And that kind of looks like it. I just need to see, I do have Ether 1 and 2. So, oh, I'm like swapping around configs again. So let's just do it on Notepad++. Although this is like really white. It might be a bit better to just do it on this darker screen. I don't remember if you can change the background on Notepad++ to be darker. Let's just see. Notepad++ dark mode. Style configurator. All right. Apparently we can. I've never done it, but foreground. Whoa, that looks kind of sick. There we go. That looks so good. That looks really good. All right, so we're not doing any MPLS. We don't need the MPLS interfaces. We just need our two interfaces, which is 10.0.0.18 on Ether 1, and then 10.0.0.26 10.0.0.26 on Ether 2, and our allo is .9. We are doing OSPF. I can make this Ether 1 and Ether 2. Oh, and the BGP connection stuff, we can just add another one. And then this will just be to PE2. And this remote address will be 2.6. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Set the name RR1. Don't see anything wrong, so this should just be a copy paste, to be honest. Let's quickly see. already on here. So easy bit to see is just to check if we learn our OSPF routes and if the BGP sessions are established. Like, that is going to be the big point here. So routing, OSPF, neighbor print, neighborships are up. And then if we do a IP, or not IP, routing, BGP, session print, we've got 2 established sessions. Awesome. That's what we like to see. All right, that's really neat. So onto the customer edges quickly, and we're almost done. Like, this is actually record time. We've built this whole network in less than an hour, where last time it took like the whole, what was it, like two and a bit. All right, but I did add a few more extra things for that. A few more nodes were configured, I guess. So let's go admin. No. DMB. I think what I'd like to do is maybe just tweak the... We can tweak this config for the route reflector and make it work for the CE as well. We don't have any loopback address. We've got an Ether1, and I'm going to assign an Ether2 IP. I think last time I made it something like 192.168.10.0 or 10.1/24 on Ether2. We're not doing any OSPF this time, so that's pretty neat. So it's really just some IP addresses, BGP. Oh, and with the BGP, I'm just not sure how well it does this. Can I now do a... Is it output.filter? Output.networks. Is it network or networks? Maybe I'll do the BGP from scratch. Yeah, I'll quickly do the BGP from scratch. Oh, hang on. We can keep this, and then it was 172.29.254.2/30. So this we can just quickly prop up into the CE. And what I'd like to do then is just go back, routing, BGP, connection, add. Or before we add the connection, let's just add the address list. So IP firewall address list, add. And this is just the list of networks we want to advertise out using BGP. So maybe I want to create a list, call it BGP out. Well, let's all caps it, BGP out, and our address is going to be that LAN sub that we want to advertise out. So this one, and then routing, BGP connection, add, name, CE1 to PE1. It's a good name. Our AS is 300. Our remote, hang on, what did I choose there? That wasn't right. Remote AS is 64510. Our remote address is 172.29.254.1. Our local address 172.29.254.2. Our local role eBGP. And we're not doing any VRF stuff here because the CE really doesn't need to know anything about that. Yeah, that's what I like. I really like that about MikroTik, is how lightweight it is in comparison. Even though both OSs or both operators or vendors really just run Linux under the hood. I mean, I think Juniper ran BSD for very long, and then they just recently moved more to, like Linux itself. Local role eBGP. Our output network is BGP out. I shouldn't have to set anything else by the look of it. So let's just enter this. Yeah, it is definitely more lightweight. And I'll tell you, like I could see a considerable increase in just performance, specifically in things like, you know, just like a simple reboot of the system. With old Junos, it takes like 10-15 minutes for a node to come back up. And the new Junos Evolved, it's so quick, man. It's like 5 minutes. It's still not as quick as a MikroTik, but it's a lot quicker. It's way more lightweight. All right, let's just see, does our routing BGP session, is this up? It is established. That is awesome. So technically, if I export this, we can just quickly dump that into our CE2. Although CE2 I think is .6 on Ether 1, we'll make it .20 on Ether 2. Oh, I just copied the same stuff. I didn't copy the BGP config. So let's just copy our address list and BGP connection. I put that in here. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. .20 is out. No, that's true. I mean, I still want to see if I can just somehow share some of the VMX images, but they are so hungry. And the funny part is, even though I can say the new Junos is lightweight, it's still not resource lightweight, you know, because the Junos Evo nodes, which runs the new Junos stuff, that eats like 8 gig of memory per node. It's really hungry. But the reason it's doing that is because the image you're actually using is for a big transport router, a PTX, or it's a packet transport device, you know. These things are supposed to be carrying millions or no, I shouldn't say trillions, but like a lot of packets. Like they just do a lot of traffic, a lot of transit. They're designed for that. They're made to push like 100 gigabit. So it's crazy. Thanks, Mohammed. Right, so that's there. We don't need an LO address. I think I copied the LO address earlier into the CE. It's fine, doesn't really matter. We just need to update our remote address to .5. Our local address is .6. And that looks pretty good. If I copy this across onto CE2, admin blank, no. I don't think I copied it. It didn't copy the right stuff. Damn it. So what I'm going to do now is just quickly print here, and then I'll just remove 0, IP firewall address list, print, remove 0. And the reason it didn't work is because it's not as awesome as my normal Windows client now. Did it actually say? It didn't take something. Let's just do a export. It didn't do the BGP. Why didn't you do the BGP? BGP out. Yeah, something looks weird there. Just do it like this. It's freaking out here. So let's just local.roll that as well. There we go. Caught him live. Is that Luke? My good old WoW buddy Luke? Or is it somebody else? How is it better, MikroTik or Cisco? It do be. Alright, that's cool. Going deep again. Well, we're not going that deep, Paul, but I think we're basically done with the setup. Ah, man, I hate it when you get something in your eye. I think I really can't say, Mohammed. Like MikroTik or Cisco, it's different worlds. Use whatever you feel is more comfortable and better. But yeah, I think Paul makes a good point there. Use Cisco at work. Look, MikroTik definitely has a place in the workforce as well, like enterprise and ISPs and stuff, but there's just, you know, there's some missing features or different features or stuff that doesn't work properly that you'd have to get another vendor for. But for the things that they do well, they ace it, man. Alright, so let's just see, is my session up? So routing BGP session print. No, it's not up. That's pretty inconvenient. Can I get to my remote address? 172.29.254.5. Yes, so that's good. The name really doesn't matter. I just want to have a look at the config on the CE or the PE2. Where am I? I really get as lost as Gandalf the Wizard. Why do I have a feeling I added the config on the PE2? No, that's fine. So routing BGP export. I don't have the connection to the CE here, so that's why it's failing. I'm sure I added it, but whatever, it's fine. I'll just add it myself. Routing BGP connection add name PE2 to CE2. Our AS64510, our remote address is going to be 172.29.254.6. Is there any other remote I need? Remote AS, that's going to be 300, like the movie. Local role, eBGP, local address, 172.29.254.5. We're going to set we're going to do an output default originate always. Oh, we want to set our, oh, I think I know where it failed. It's probably because of the VRFs, because I don't have a customer VRF here either. Cust1, routing table, cust1. Anything else out of order? No, this looks good. It's gonna moan because I don't have cust one, so let's just do a IPVRF add name cust1 interface equals ether, what was it, ether 2 I think. Yeah, up arrow at the BGP session, and there we go, there we go. So if I look at my BGP sessions now, both of them are up. Awesome, we've got a session to our CE and we've got a session to our route reflector. The network is starting to come alive, guys. And the weird bit is I've done this whole lab without listening to a single music, so that's why it feels a bit weird. Let me just put on some good old Electric 6. There we go. Alright, that's nice. Alright, let's quickly see what's happening. We can actually just test quickly, see from CE1 can we ping the CE2 IP. So if I ping 192.168, oh, there's one thing I haven't done yet. It's going to fail, and I know why. But let's just run the test so long and see if it fails, as I think. And then we'll try and add the fix quickly. So 192.168.10.1 net unreachable. Do I receive a route? Yeah, I do. Now, if I look on my provider edge 1 and I look at the BGP VPN config, I'm not exporting or redistributing any of my connected or BGP learned routes or anything like that. So this is why it's not doing anything. So let's just do routing BGP VPN set. Is it export dot redistribute? Let's do connected and let's do BGP. Hit the enter for line number 0, and I just need to do the same on the PE2 quickly. That's not what I want. No. Routing BGP VPN set output export redistribute connected BGP. Oh, didn't I even add the I didn't even add the BGP VPN on the PE2. Okay, this PE2 is like really busted. So let's just add a BGP VPN. Then we can add our VRF. Oh, it's because I didn't have the cust1 VRF. That's obviously why. Route distinguisher 64510:1 export dot route target 64510:1 import route dot target 64510:1, and our label allocation policy is per VRF. There we go. Now, is it actually doing its thing? We can also just check the routing route. We can print this, and there we can see we're learning some VPN for routes. And it's also cool that you can say where VPN for. Where VPN? Hang on. What am I doing wrong? Where AFI equals VPN 4. There we go. The good old equal sign. All right, that looks pretty good. So if I do a ping across now, Ooh, guess what, guys? Guess what? Success! It's working. So now you can see I'm not a crazy person. I sat here for freaking hours over the last few, how many streams, like 2 streams, trying to make this work, and it wasn't an us issue. Guess what it was? It was a software issue. So I think I moaned about it on a post somewhere, but now you guys get to see it in real time. That you know, sometimes you're not the issue. Sometimes it is the software or it is the equipment. You're not like a crazy person sometimes. So don't feel bad when you jump in and troubleshoot things for a couple of hours and it amounts to nothing at the end of the day, because that happens a lot. But it's pretty nice to see that this setup actually works. So we can neaten it up and make it look nicer, although it looks pretty good how it is as well. I mean, the only thing I'd probably do is just add like a little like circle thingy, make it look a little bit nicer like that. I probably wouldn't add black. Black is so boring. Like a nice orange, I guess. I don't know why I did that. There we go. So that could be our nice... Actually, I'm going to take away the stripes or dashes. Just make it a solid color. And I might make it a little bit thicker. There we go. There's our nice MPLS network. And it's working for real. It's not fake now. There we go. Let's just mark the AS as well. And I'm doing this not just for myself, but for people if I do release the lab to you guys and like network members and wherever. It's a lot easier to understand. So this is 64510. Maybe make this a little bit bigger. That doesn't look bigger at all. There we go. We make a nice purple for the AS. Pop it there at the bottom. What would you like to know about VLANs or server DNS? Is there anything like specifically that you're asking? Do you want to see how to configure VLANs, or do you want to use MikroTik as a DNS server? I mean, MikroTik is a bit weird to be using as a DNS server. You can add stuff like A records and stuff, which is nice for your home network. I mean, a good example would be, I don't know if I can really showcase it on this topology right this second. I probably could. I could just add a Docker. Let's add a Docker quickly. So if I add a Docker and let's make it I think a server. Sorry if you guys are hearing my phone beep. I'm just quickly going to turn off or set it to vibrate. I know usually if I'm watching somebody else and their phone is like beeping and stuff, then I think it's maybe my phone. And I reach in and check it, and then, you know, it's annoying. Yeah, you could definitely do that, Joseph. You could drop this down, definitely. I mean, there's some cases where people don't even have these provider, like small ISPs. They might just have a bunch of provider edges. You know, they might not even have a route reflector. They might just have a full mesh of provider edges, like 3 or 4, depending on how big the ISP is. Like it's not uncommon. Like these mini, you know, like mini ISPs, like that just service a little city or something. Because let's be real, sometimes you just don't have the money, right? Not everybody has a ton of cash to spend on, hey, I'm going to have a dedicated transit router that does 100 gig connections. Sometimes you work with what you got. But on the other end, you need to also then understand you might run into some complexities or even some resource exhaustion, especially if you have, let's say you have a provider edge that's also connecting to like a transit provider and getting a full BGP feed. Like that device is going to get a lot of flack. It's probably going to not have a nice time servicing customers. So for stuff like trying to get full BGP tables, I'd probably recommend a dedicated transit router for that. And then everything else in your network, just like do whatever you want. Do what makes sense, I should say. Don't do what you do what makes sense. Do what's reasonable. I feel like now that we've got that working, there's more to do. There's more to do. I'm wondering if the BGP signaled VPLS works, but that's going to be a little bit much to unpack in like 30 minutes because I'm going to end off the stream in 30 minutes as well. So we could either dabble around with some VLANs, or I could go back into the Juniper lab as well and figure out a few things there. I mean, at the end of the day, this is really just us figuring things out, or like I said, me figuring things out. And you guys are kind of just also tagging along and seeing what's happening. I mean, I just feel like elated or vindicated, like that this setup works fine. I mean, I could maybe also just finish off the setup by finishing configuring the like route reflector 2 and PE3 and 4. Maybe I should do that, like for the next upcoming labs, so that we've got a good baseline to work with. Yeah, I'm just quickly going to finish off the provider edge, but feel free to chit chat, guys. Like I love engaging with you guys. It makes it a lot more interesting than just sitting here, you know, blowing my brains out through a bunch of I shouldn't say it that way. That sounded weird. But you guys get what I mean. You're like so into just like green screens and CLI and terminals and stuff. It gets a bit much, like going through everything. Let's do PE3, PE4, RR2. That is really the stuff that just needs finishing off. And maybe I can add some redundant links to CE1 and 2 and see if we can make that work. All right, ready, set, go. So PE3. Yeah, let's just bring in the links quickly from CE1 and 2. Is SSH an option here? When you say SSH, this type of topology would support VXLAN, Joseph. It should work fine with VXLAN. You could, in essence, do something like have a VXLAN tunnel run from PE1 to PE2, and then bridge it so that whatever devices are connected on the VXLAN interfaces can see each other like they're in the same layer, like broadcast domain or layer 2 segment. Oh, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I get what you mean. If I click here, it's like connecting like this, but I don't know if you guys saw like how SSH is getting attacked recently. It's so weird to see, because we had the, what was it, the XY utils or something that had a backdoor issue in it. And then we also recently had, like with PuTTY itself, there was also some old legacy backdoor stuff. It's such a weird time, man. Like SSH is supposed to be this fortress, and now people are able to crack private keys if you're using an outdated version of PuTTY. It's so weird. Oh. I got you. I got you. I understand what you mean. Yeah, there's lots of console littering happening here. I'm bad with that. I'm sorry. It's the same like with tabs. I'm terrible with tabs. If you ever see my actual workspace, like work computer or laptop, there's like I know a lot of people do it, but I'm really like having at least like 40 tabs open at any given time, and I get lost in them, and it's my own mistake. It's my own fault. I should really just buckle down and only have access to the things I'm busy with at this point in time. I just wonder if we can make it a bit nicer with the terminals, because I could maybe switch to something else besides like putty. Or we could just use Winbox. I mean, Winbox is a pretty good option. Since we're using MikroTik here, Winbox is really good for that. So let's go into our downloads. Let's whine into Winbox. Yeah, no, I think that's the point. Like I'm able to keep track of it, and I know where stuff is, but it's like, you know, it's like hoarding almost, because to the person that's hoarding it, you don't realize that it's like like bad, but to you it's totally fine and normal. I need to connect one of these nodes just to my cloud management quickly. So Joseph, on that front, I've actually tested using a similar topology with MikroTik and Juniper, where even though the Junipers weren't really, or the MikroTiks weren't really in the provider or provider edge, I did have a MikroTik running as a route reflector, and I had MikroTik sitting at the customer edges, and that worked fine. That worked totally fine. Like we could definitely switch it and have MikroTik sitting at the provider edge at least. And I think that should work still. Maybe even just the provider, because you know, it's the provider edges that really needs to do a lot of the heavy lifting, where you maybe want to run stuff like EVPN. And although I've seen people like you know, Kevin Myers, he does a lot of work, or did a lot of work with stuff like Oknos, and a lot of the times they put down like an Oknos core network running stuff like segment routing, and then at the provider edges they would put down MikroTiks to, you know, give customer services and whatever. Yeah. We had to drink a lot of No, that's right. I remember that. I think if I ever start up a stream and I'm gonna do the Juniper stuff, I'll have the lab already running by the time the stream comes up, to be honest. Yeah. Alright, a nice little PC, even though that's just like to connect in on like here quickly, look at our neighbors. And then we can just use nice Winbox. Beer and boot time. Yeah, that actually sounds quite cool, quite catchy. Should turn that into a shirt. So I'm not connecting, or am I gonna connect onto Roman? Maybe we should connect onto Roman, and then from here we can configure our PE. Oh, I can't configure anything on Roman because I haven't enabled it on these devices yet. So we can either just quickly enable Roman, and then we can do the setup through Winbox, which is fine. No. So I can just do a tool Roman set enable, yes, and that should be. Actually, this is also set a system identity set name. This is PE3. It's just so that when I see the devices in our Roman list, I can see what it is. And there we can see PE3 is up. Let's quickly just add PE4. Admin blank, no, cancel out, system identity set name, P PE4. Tool ROMON set enabled. Yes, I do love ROMON though. It's such a good overlay network. As you can see, I'm already doing that thing where I'm like, I've got tabs, or I just alt tab and just go on to the next thing. And let's add our RR2. Now I'm starting to get freaked out. Hang on. Oh, okay, that makes sense. It makes sense. Okay. I was wondering why I see only 10 items, but we've got 12 nodes. And I need to add the last node, which would make it 11, but there's 12. But obviously the P1 that I'm connected to isn't going to show in the list. So we figured it out before it became an issue. Thanks so much, Joseph, for supporting. I appreciate that. So route reflector 2, go on here, system identity set name, what is this, RR2, tool ROMON set enable, yes. Cool, now we've got our nice management tool ROMON and we can connect to all of our devices from here, and we said we're going to configure PE3 quickly, so connect. But the funny bit is I'm just going to kind of do the same thing I did with the Telnet windows. I'm just going to head into the terminal here and paste the config in. But we can scale down the config a little bit. Let's just go into the text. So we want OSPF, we want MPLS. No, that's true. OSPF, IP, that's fine. LDP, that's fine. I'm going to take out the BGP connection for now. Identity we've already set, ROM1 we've already set. I just quickly want to get the OSPF and the basic IP and MPLS functionality on these provider edges. So PE3, what do we have? Oh, I still need to like add another link here. I think I wanted to do that and then I got sidetracked by something. So for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to make this something else. So maybe make it 200. And CE2, same type of deal. But 4. All right, that looks pretty good. But it's still just Ether 1 that has an IP bound to it. So where am I? Let me just copy this into Notepad++. And I'm already doing this with Notepad++ as well. All right, let's have a look and see what we're doing. So OSPF, that's fine. IP addresses, Ether 1, 10, 0, 1, 2. And then Ether 2, 172.29.200.1. And it has a loopback of .7. MPLS is .7. And it's just Ether 1 that we will be adding to the interface template. I do at some point want to just have some links running between the provider edges as well, just as a basic like failover redundant link, so to speak. Because it's not, because let's say provider 3 goes down, then it doesn't matter how many links you have, because then these remote nodes will be like off. Actually, what I should do is add redundant links from provider edge 1 and 4, maybe to P1 and P4. That way, at least we have node redundancy as well, instead of just link redundancy. Is my content lit? Don't worry, I also get confused with the new way like everybody talks these days. I'm not good with keeping up with social trends. But I think it's because I don't really interact. I shouldn't say I don't interact. I interact plainly, obviously, with people, but on things like what's the new big thing? TikTok. I really don't hang around TikTok, even though I've seen why people enjoy being on it. I don't use it often. Same with stuff like Instagram or chat services. I think the last big chat service that I used when things were lit, so to speak, was MIRC, and that was a very long time ago. That was like ages ago. Oh, and Discord. Don't forget, Discord is also like the new cool chat room, but it's kind of like having your own MIRC, to be honest. I just treated it the same way. But now I'm yapping and not configuring. Yeah, there were so many chat rooms, and it was my older brother that showed me, like, hey, this is it. 10.0.1.2 172.29.200. That's fine. It's fine. All right, this looks fine. I'm just gonna pop that into PE3 and see that it actually, even though I lied because I said I was gonna do it from Winbox and I ended up not doing that. Naughty. All right. So 2, 5, 8. I'm sure that's once 8. And I'm going to do it again. But the cool thing is we can go into this Winbox session and just quickly have a look at routing, OSPF. But this is also where you can see like the differences between like the CLI and the Winbox GUI. Like there's so much less that you can see on the GUI. I know there's a lot of options. I don't know what next. Oh, it's obvious what next hops is. I don't know what I was thinking there. My eyes spazzed out. I thought it was like some fancy new next ops or something like that. But what I'm specifically egging on about is if you look at like, if you go into the command line, you do routing, you go route and you print. Like this is really cool that you can see that this is like advanced routing table stuff. And it's not here if you look at it. It doesn't exist. And same if we just go into the routing table, like there's a lot of information here, but this is pretty cool. Ah, that's really cool, Fog. That's really cool. As funny as it is, I met my wife. I didn't meet her online. We've met before in person, but we started really like talking online, and then we became like romantically like invested. So I think it's pretty common to like meet your significant other online these days. Okay, what I wanted to check was if I can actually see the loopback address for PE4, which I can see there, 172.30.09. And we can ping that. All right, cool. So I just quickly want to add the route reflector OSPF details, route reflector 2. And this should be a quick one as well. So, oh, I had it minimized for a reason. So route reflector 2 is 10.00.22, 10.00.22 on ether 1. And then 10.00.30, 10.00.30 on ether 2. And is this what, dot 10? Oh, wait, I saw the wrong thing. When I was talking about PE4, because I was pinging 172.30.09, and that was actually route reflector 1. So I can see dot 8 there as well. Alright, cool. So I wasn't lying. That is there. Alright, that's fine. I don't know why. No, I don't need MPLS on the route reflector, but I did need it on the PEs, which is fine. We just want to do ether 1, ether 2. And then we can just paste that into our route reflector. And we can do a routing. OSPF. What is it? Neighbor print. Yay, we got some full neighborships. And if we do a IP route print, we should get routes. There we go. We're learning our loopbacks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I feel like that vampire count on Sesame Street. So that looks good. This is promising. So we got like 6 minutes left, maybe enough time to just quickly add the BGP config as well from I don't know, because I need to configure BGP to both route reflectors and I need to do it on all of the provider edges. I think for now, just before we end this off, the PE3 and PE4, I'm just going to get hooked up to this route reflector 1. We won't worry about route reflector 2 for now. Like route reflector 2 is just going to be here for, you know, if we want to use stuff like a cluster, because it might be that you want to have 2 route reflectors. Because obviously if this route reflector goes down, it goes kaput, it goes away, then what's going to happen to your routes? So, or even your VPN services, like the layer 3 VPNs, it's not going to be working very nice anymore, is it? Because it's relying on this route reflector. So having this backup route reflector, it's a very good idea. Well, maybe one of the hardest things to learn is which protocol is to be used. Yeah, 100%. And yes, Joseph, exactly. There's so many moving parts. And I agree, 1 RR is enough until that day comes when it breaks and all heck breaks loose, and it eventually will. Even though hopefully never, if anybody is just using a single RR, I really hope nothing ever happens to your stuff, but you need to plan for what ifs. But that's the cool thing about network engineering, for me at least, is always having a backup plan. Like even if there wasn't a physical second route reflector, I can tell you now, the moment that RR1 breaks, any network engineer worth their salt would be like, okay, I need to make a plan, and you'll think about it, you'll figure it out, and you'll be like, I'm just going to spin up a virtual route reflector, I'll spin up a CHR, I'll add a license to that I got from passing my MTCNA, and I'm going to just start building the tunnels to this virtual CHR and start reflecting routes from it. Like the people will just, you'll make it work. Like that's always the fun thing. Like I shouldn't say it that way, because it's not the same for everybody, but like me, I love the pressure that you sometimes get from network engineering. All right, but I'm yapping again. So let me just quickly add PE 3 and 4's BGP, and then I can probably call it a night. I can test that probably maybe in the next lab, the VPN v6. But for that I need to add a few, IPv6 networks. But it's not the worst. It's actually pretty easy. You might see me make a few dead beef cafe stuff here, so look forward to that. That's the one prefix that I know really well when it comes to IPv6. Why am I moving? Routing BGP connection. Okay, this should work pretty fine. 64510. Local 172.30. Yeah, we can wait for it. Actually, I agree with that. We should wait for the stable, to be honest. But there's still no harm in just testing out either. What was it? PE 7 and 8. So .7 IBGP-RR-client IBGP name CE3 to RR1. We're not doing any output. We're connecting to 172.30.9. Our remote.as is our AS. Yes, you can make it work without a route reflector. Definitely. You can just build like a full mesh. I think the route reflector is really just there in the event of like scaling. It's nice to just have that there. But I've seen people wanting to do away with route reflectors. We want our address families. I don't remember. It's not just AFI, it's address. Damn it. I'll probably just have to go in there. Let's just copy this and go into our PE3. And then I think it's address-families. Okay, that's fine. IPv6, L2 VPN, and VPN v4. Anything else? We've got a local address, local role, name, remote address, remote AS, and our own AS. Now this seems good. And I'm just going to probably paste this in here. And I'm just going to update our local address. Pop that into our PE4. Routing BGP connection. All right. So I just quickly need to add my stuff on the route reflector. And this I might just do from Winbox quickly, just for fun, just for funsies. Connect to the ROM, get onto the RR1. I mean, it's going to be super simple on Winbox because I can just use the nice copy button. Copy, and then I can just call this RR1 to PE3, and just update the remote address to .7 and 8. apply, copy, and 8. RR1 to PE4, apply that. And presto, we've got full mesh session. Well, I shouldn't say full mesh sessions, but all of our provider edges are now communicating with our nice and loving little route reflector. So on our next episode of Dragon Ball Z, we might set up some failover functionality and a little bit more exports. Alright, so before we end off the stream, let's just have a small chat. I just want to see what you guys are saying, and if you want to ask questions, now's the time as well. Does MikroTik have a piece of documentation that describes this implementation in one place? Struggling to find a... Okay, so the best place that I can recommend you go to is help.mikrotik.com/docs. And the best case study, even though it doesn't introduce everything I've done in this lab, like route reflectors or some of the nitty-gritty stuff, Olga's guide in the VRF section is pretty solid. It does the base foundation for the network that I've set up here. So on the docs, if you go to your routing, you should find a virtual routing and forwarding, or VRF for short, obviously. And here we can see there is the simplest MPLS VPN setup. So Joseph, this is what you want to come find. Click here. Almost the same type of topology, just without any route reflector. So this is just like two provider edges connected kind of directly. Good night. But yeah, come and check this out. I'd actually recommend trying to lab this first, and then hopefully it will also help you like come to terms with what I've been doing tonight as well. So that if anything was too confusing, hopefully this helps make it a little less confusing. But there's great examples here, like MikroTik's docs here is pretty solid. It's kind of like copied from the old case studies, just updated with some of the new information. But I guess not a lot has actually changed. But Olga's really done a great job. Like, I think she's a superstar when it comes to VRFs. I actually think she should get a more recognition on the videos of MikroTik. But I think a lot of people get put off by an accent. And I don't know why, because even I've got an accent. Alright, I'm still open to a few more questions. Otherwise, it's going to be a pretty... I'm not going to say short stream, because we've streamed like over 2 hours now, which is a fairly decent amount. Fairly decent. Route leaking, network zombies. That's good. I actually should try and do some route leaking. I don't think I've actually done it, so I'll check it out as well. Yeah. Alright guys, so this is going to be then when I end off the stream, and next week we will definitely build up of this lab again, because I'm not going to move back to the previous lab where a software bug was potentially causing me a lot of heartache. But I really do appreciate everybody for tuning in again, chatting with me, hanging out, and just having fun. Hope you guys enjoyed it as well, and I'll catch you guys in the next stream or in the next video even. So, chat again a bit later. Good night.